Welcome to Eye on the Cure, a podcast from the Foundation Fighting Blindness, providing science research, news, and insights about the world of vision and blinding diseases.
Welcome, everyone, to the Eye on the Cure podcast. I'm your host, Ben Shaberman, with the Foundation Fighting Blindness, and I'd like to thank Boehringer Ingelheim and Johnson & Johnson for sponsoring this episode. And for this episode, I'm very much looking forward to my conversation with Sam Seavey. He's founder and host of the Blind Life YouTube channel and one of the most knowledgeable experts on assistive and accommodative technologies. And the Blind Life has more than 60,000 subscribers and 900 informative videos. And in addition to his presence on the internet, Sam is the go-to guy for assistive technology talks at conferences. And I've seen Sam so many times over the years on Capitol Hill, at FFB's vision conferences, at Stargardt meetings. I am constantly coming across him and enjoying his presentations. And in addition to the YouTube channel, Sam has a day job with the Bluegrass Council of the Blind in Lexington, Kentucky, where he helps seniors live with low vision. And Sam also collaborates with tech companies like Google, Sony, and Apple. And all of this great work is inspired by his vision loss from the retinal disease, Stargardt disease. So, Sam, welcome to the podcast. I'm really honored to have you as a guest on the show.
Hey, Ben, thank you so much for having me. You know, when you lay it all out like that, how do I have time to do all of that?
I don't know. It's a lot. It's
Yeah.
impressive, but we're all grateful for all you do. And I want to talk more about what you do. But before we get into that discussion, I'd like to learn a little more about you, the person. And to start, can you tell us where you grew up? What kind of kid you were? Were you sort of a technology nerd or a sports kid? And how did the Stargardt disease diagnosis change your trajectory in life?
Sure. Well, yeah, definitely not a sports kid. I can say that right away. I'm originally from North Carolina, originally from Raleigh, North Carolina, and I grew up all up and down the East Coast, moved around a lot with my dad's job, and so had the experience of living up in the north, up in Maryland, up all the way down to Florida, and then, as you said, moved to Kentucky back in mid '90s. I guess I would say I was a normal kid. I like to hang out with my friends, like to ride my bike, like to ride my skateboard. I was never great in school. A lot of that did have to do with my vision impairment, but a lot had to do with I always wanted to be the class clown and make people laugh rather than pay attention and focus on my studies. So I did have, I guess, a normal childhood. I was diagnosed at age 11 with Stargardt's, so it kind of started to shift at that point. But I've also always had a very slow progressing Stargardt's, so it didn't really affect anything right away for me outside of school. Like I said, in school, obviously, it was much harder to kind of adapt to the vision loss, and back then try to hide the vision loss as most of us do. You know, especially when they thrust the big large print books into your arms and say you're sitting in the front row and here's a monocular and. But I tried to not let things like that get me down. I've always had a bit of you could say a positive attitude, kind of a glass is half full. Everything's going to work out, and I've continued to have that attitude as I grew up and got into adulthood. And it's fared me well over the years. I'm sure we'll probably talk about that as well.
Sure. And at what point did you envision yourself getting into the space you're in? At what point did you decide, I want to educate people about assistive technologies or help people deal with their low vision. When did sort of the light go off for that?
Yeah, well, you had asked if I was a techie kid growing up, and I was to a point. Obviously, when smartphones started to come out, that's when I really like, oh, this is awesome. I want to learn as much as I can about technology and especially mobile technology. And it kind of coincides with when I started focusing on assistive technology. My daughter was born in 2005, and I became the stay-at-home dad because my wife has a much better job than I did at the time, and so it just made sense. And so after a couple of years and my daughter started preschool and then went into kindergarten, I was by myself a lot at home and started getting bored. So I was looking for things to do. I'd always been I was never a sit at home and not do anything kind of a guy. I was always wanted to do something, always looking for something to do, whether that was, jobs, or I was always a very creative person. Back in middle school and high school, I really thought I was going to go into comic book art. I was really good. I think I'm still pretty good at drawing superheroes. And someone says, "Hey, can you draw Superman fighting the Hulk?" I'd be like, "Yeah, no problem. I can bang that out pretty easily." So I thought I was going to go into that field, but oddly enough, you kind of need central detail vision in order to draw comics very well. So that wasn't going to pan out like I thought it would, but I always still was very creative. And so at one point, I got a job, and I won't get into all the details. I've got a whole video on my vision story, and it talks about this in more detail. But I landed a job creating videos on YouTube for a company down in Texas, making videos about mobile technology, specifically Android smartphones and Android tablets at the time. This was about 2010, 2011. And so that was my first adventure into YouTube, creating content on YouTube, and got me started in that and got me familiar with that and comfortable with creating videos on YouTube. And I did that for a couple of years. And during that time, nobody ever knew that I was visually impaired. That wasn't the focus of the channel. And so I never said anything about it. But every now and then I would do a video about some way that I was using my device to make my life easier with my low vision, whether it was apps that I was using or how to make your text larger so it's easier to see. I'd make a video about that. And I got a lot of positive reactions from the community based on those videos. And so that kind of got me thinking that maybe there was a need on YouTube for information about adaptive mobile technology, you could say. And so then I did that, worked for that company for about 3 years making videos and built that channel up to pretty good numbers at the time. But it was kind of winding down. The gentleman down in Texas was going in a different direction. And so I knew it was going to wrap up soon. And so one day I decided to search on YouTube for Stargardt's disease because I was curious. I wanted to see if anybody was talking about it. And at the time, which is 2013, nobody really was. There were some videos from doctors talking about the condition, but there wasn't much from people just living with it, which is really what I was interested in. So I decided to start my channel at the time because I was bored and I wanted something to do. And it created, at the time, it was called The Blind Spot as an homage to my Stargardt's and my central vision loss. And slowly over time, making those videos, they started to gain traction and become popular. And I thought that maybe this could possibly turn into something more than what I had planned. So I thought I should take it seriously. And then in 2016, I landed a job as an assistive technology program manager at the nonprofit where I still work today. And that's really when the channel turned into mainly talking about assistive technology and focusing heavily on that. That's also where I really started getting comfortable working with clients and started to develop, I guess you could say, my style for teaching, and which has, very quickly translated that into my videos as well. And yeah, it's been a kind of a roller coaster ever since.
That's a great story. And what I love about it is it's not like you set out to launch The Blind Life, that you had this big idea and just went for it right off the bat. You sort of found your way to it over time, and I think it is inspirational in that for those of us in life, and many of us fall into this, we don't necessarily have a plan, but if you just kind of keep moving forward, sometimes you find your path. And it's really cool how you've emerged to become such a voice and authority in this low vision space. And one thing that you do so well, that I know, especially us, that those of us that don't have low vision do so poorly, is describe what your vision loss is like. We have these simulations, pictures, videos where there's, for Stargardt disease, there's just like this big blind spot or crater in the middle of a photograph or a video. And I know that's not accurate. Tell us in words what your visual experience and your visual loss is like.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has come just down to, trial and error over the years and figuring out the best way to audibly explain things to people. I also, at heart, I'm a layman just like everybody else, so I want to try to explain it in a way that I would understand it as well. But you're right. I did a video several years ago, and I updated the video maybe 2 years ago, where how I see with Stargardt's disease, and I also included macular degeneration in on that as well, because it's pretty similar. But based on that, because like you said, those visual representations always drove me crazy, because that's not how I see it all. And I know that, some people do see it that way, but the vast majority of us do not see it that way. We don't see this giant black blob floating around in our central vision. The way I kind of describe it to people is that the brain doesn't like a lack of information. And that's true for all things. We might talk about trying to experience things that maybe we have a little bit of anxiety about doing and stepping out of our comfort zone. And that's because we don't know what to expect. And the brain fills that lack of information, with negative thoughts. So it's kind of the same thing. I can't see, my central vision doesn't work. So physically, my eyes do not see what's right in front of me in my central vision. And so the brain doesn't like that. So the brain tries to fill in the missing information. It does its best to do so. And it does that by gathering information around the scotoma, around the blind spot. And such as background colors. If I'm looking at a painting on a wall, I can't see the painting, but it's going to try and grab some of the wall colors and fill that in. It thinks, well, there's missing information there, but there's this information around the sides. Well, surely that's what's supposed to be there in the middle as well. And so that's why we always say that, I could be looking right at something, like my phone sitting on a table, and my phone completely disappears. It is just completely gone. There is no phone in my experience. There's no phone on that table. But I don't see a black blob because the brain tries to fill in the table information, the missing table information. So I jokingly say it's the coolest magic trick that anybody can do, but unfortunately, I'm the only one that can see the magic trick. But the other thing is that it fills in also with past experiences. And a lot of people see this every day in real life. If you're driving along and you see movement out of the corner of your eye with your peripheral, even though you're looking forward, you don't know what that is. You're not looking right at it. The brain says, okay, based on past experiences, we're in a car, we're on a road, there's movement. Chances are that's a car. It does the calculations, 95% sure that's probably a car. So even before you look over to see what it is, your brain is already telling you, oh, that's probably a car. And most of the time it's right. So it's kind of the same thing. It fills in missing information that's surrounding, but it also fills in with possible past experiences of what it thinks it might be. And this oftentimes kind of can also go in hand with the Charles Bonnet syndrome and some of the hallucinations that people see with that, the brain trying to fill in that missing information.
Right, right. And as you were talking, I was thinking about that very thing.
Mm-hmm.
People with Charles Bonnet syndrome, it's basically the brain, the visual cortex in the brain is still working and creating images, even if
Mhm.
your retinas or other parts of the eye are not. They're hallucinations and they're totally benign, even though people can be quite alarmed by them.
Yes.
But I like your description, and it is sort of an homage to the brain. In our world, we're always thinking about the retina capturing light and
Mhm.
photoreceptors, rods, and cones. But I don't think we appreciate all the work that the brain is doing. And even when our rods and cones aren't working so well. So thanks for reviewing that role of the brain.
Yeah.
So I want to shift gears a little bit and get a sense of sort of your relationships, and you have a wife and two kids, and I presume they're all pretty normally sighted, and obviously you have your challenges with vision loss. How does do you think your vision loss impacts your family dynamics? And can I ask, when you met your wife, obviously before you got married, did she know right away that you had this condition, Stargardt disease?
Yeah, so no, she didn't, because when I met her, I was still in that classic masking phase, where I was trying to pretend to be quote unquote normal, like everybody else. And I didn't want anybody to know about my vision impairment. I hadn't fully accepted it. I hadn't come out of the closet, as some people say. But I credit my wife, my now wife, to a lot of my becoming more comfortable with my vision impairment, because it was tough love from her saying, knock it off, you're being ridiculous, you're not fooling anybody, you're trying to you're trying to be fully sighted, but we can all tell. uh, and once the hurt feelings went away for her being honest with me. No, but once I stepped back and I looked at it, and I realized that she's absolutely right. There's you know I'm trying to be something I'm not, and I'm not being genuine to myself, and that's not fair to myself. And I'm trying to be this imposter, and I'm exerting all this energy on pretending to be something I'm not, and it's making my life harder ultimately. But yeah, so she was very instrumental in helping me deal with that. And we have been married now 24 years now, and I have a son from a previous relationship who's 26. And then our daughter is 20, a junior in college, and they are all fully sighted. I've done series on my channel talking with them. I have a whole series called Couples Q&A, where I sat down with my wife, a multi-video series, and we talked about life with a blind partner, dating, how we met, dating, marriage life, home life, raising children. And then I have sat down also with both of my kids and had the conversations with them as well. And we talked about what it was like growing up with a blind father, and how that made your life different. And one of the best ways is, it's all positive. A lot of people, you see this on Facebook posts and stuff like that. They think about, oh, I don't know if I should have kids because what's their life going to be like having a blind parent? And it's like, it's going to be great. Your kids are going to grow up with empathy for people that are different than them. They're going to grow up with a much stronger help response. They're going to be much more eager to help people that are in need, because that's what they've always done. They've always known that mom or dad needs help. And as soon as my daughter was old enough to read, she was reading menus for me, and she would hold my hand as we crossed the street from the parking lot going up to the store, because she knows that she needs to, make sure to hang on to daddy because he can't see well. So she needs to help protect him from the cars in the parking lot. And yeah, so it's been great. It's all positives. And what I tell people too is that nobody knows how to raise kids, even the fully sighted. When before you have kids, nobody knows how to do it. You're figuring it out as you go. So it's no different doing that with vision impairment. Like I said before, I was a stay-at-home dad. So for the first 5, 6 years of my daughter's life, it was she and I all day at home. And we didn't want to be bored at home, so we would walk to a local park or we'd walk up to the mall where they had a play area. And I never shied away from doing those types of things because I had systems. I would put her in a super bright yellow shirt so that I could at least follow that bright yellow blob running around the park, and I could keep an eye on her. Or if we went to the play area at the mall where maybe it wasn't the best lighting, I knew that I'm just going to sit here at the entrance. And as long as a bright yellow blob doesn't run past me, she's in there and I don't hear any screaming or crying. She's doing fine. She's having a great time. So I think it's great having kids as a VIP. I think it's everybody has to make that decision, but it was the right one for us.
Right, right. And I love that your kids are learning from it and learning empathy and
Mhm.
how to help people. That's such an important lesson, and who better to learn it from and with than your parents. So
Mhm.
great anecdotes, great story. Let's switch gears a little bit because I know for our listeners who have low vision, not that they don't benefit from all this discussion and knowing your personal journey, but tell us a little bit about the low vision accommodations that are sort of your go-to technologies. And I realize for different people, it will be different things,
Mhm.
especially, with Stargardt disease, AMD, it's central vision loss. You need one type of accommodation or technology. People with retinitis pigmentosa, it may be something totally different because they have more peripheral vision loss. But can you talk about what you think are the most commonly beneficial technologies?
Yes, and I just want to point out you're absolutely correct, and it really speaks to the fact that everybody is an individual and you need to find the custom tailor-made solutions for you. I'm a big proponent of that. All the clients I work with, I'm like, we're going to find what is going to be the best for you specifically. But you're right, there are certain things that we look at with low vision right away. Magnification. I talk a lot about when I'm working with clients, I talk about the three pillars of accessibility. And I don't know if that's a real thing. I made it up, but it's visual enhancements, auditory enhancements, and tactile enhancements. Most of what we work with, whether that's low tech or high tech, can be distilled, can be boiled down into one or more of those three pillars. And so we look at visual enhancements. Those are things like magnification, high contrast, lighting, anything that we can do to make this easier for you to see it. And for low vision, that's traditionally, but once again, not everybody's this way, but most people, good lighting and good contrast and making something larger makes all of those things make it easier to see. So we talk about magnifiers, we talk about optical magnifiers first and work our way up. And then we might get to the point where optical magnification doesn't work. So we talk about digital magnification and we kind of go over the pros and cons for all of those, portability versus screen size versus color contrast, all of that. Then you could look at smartphones. Smartphone technology is incredible. People always ask me what's my favorite piece of assistive technology. I say I have a lot of favorites, but smartphone still probably has to be one of the best because it can do so many different things pretty well. I always tell people it doesn't do any one thing perfectly, but it does a lot of things really well. And so many ways that it can be helpful for us for, seeing things better, communications, accessing information, accessing printed material, all of that. So that's generally where we start with low vision. And then we talk about, if somebody needs computer training or whatever, we could talk about solutions for that. A lot of people just don't realize what's available. Just last week, I had somebody call me up and asked if there was some kind of magnifier that they could put in front of their computer screen to make it larger. And I mean, there used to be, and they might still be floating around, but we have much better solutions for that now. You have built-in options on your computer that are free. They just need to be turned on, show you how to use them, and they're going to be way better than that old, terrible stuff.
Certainly, certainly. You know, I am hearing a lot of buzz about Meta glasses, and I don't want to make this discussion a promotion for Meta glasses. And I'm guessing there might be other similar technologies. But can you tell us in a nutshell what Meta glasses are and how they can help people with low vision?
Sure, yeah, you're absolutely right. That's kind of the hot new thing in assistive technology right now for several reasons. The Meta glasses, now Meta's the parent company for Facebook, and they have partnered up with some different sunglass manufacturers to create these smart glasses. And mainly Ray-Ban, and now they've partnered up with Oakley, and they've come out with these smart glasses. And essentially they're very simple. They're basically wireless headphones that connect to your phone in a sunglass form. And so they have speakers, they have microphones on the glasses, they connect to your phone wirelessly. You can receive phone calls and talk to people through the glasses. You can listen to your music, you can listen to your audiobook, all of that. But where they become very helpful for us is they have cameras built in as well. And they have a type of AI. They're running a type of AI. It's just called Meta AI. And you can use this, you can think of this as your personal digital assistant that's right there, standing next to you, always ready to help with whatever you need. Because it has the camera built in, it can see what you're looking at and it can react to that. So you can ask questions about what it sees. And that could be something as simple as, hey, Meta, what's in front of me? And it will describe the scene in front of you. Or you can say, hey, Meta, can you read this menu? And it will read the menu for you, or read a sign for you, or read your phone bill, tell you what color your socks are, just whatever you need, it can help with. And because it has AI, the different ways that it can help is almost endless. And it's really good at getting you the information you need in a very quick and precise way, but then you have the ability to ask follow-up questions, and that becomes really, really helpful as well.
It's incredible how powerful that technology is. And I'll comment, this is showing my shallowness a little bit. They look great. You mentioned Ray-Ban and Oakley. I've seen people with Meta glasses, and at first I just thought these folks were wearing stylish glasses, but
Mhm.
it's amazing how fashionable and discreet they are. It's incredible that they have so much power packed into just a regular pair of glasses.
Yes.
So
Yeah. And the other thing is, the other reason why they've kind of taken off in our community is because they are truly accessible, and with regard to pricing. Unfortunately, in the assistive technology world, everything is expensive. Everything is crazy expensive. And but then you have these glasses coming on the market that they're not geared towards the blind community. They're basically just general consumer electronics, and they have a general consumer electronic price tag. So the Ray-Bans are about $300 depending on the style. The Oakleys, I think, are like $500 depending on the style. And yeah, that's still a lot of money, but compared to a comparable device built for the blind that maybe is $3,500, it makes it much more affordable to a wider group.
certainly, certainly, that's really wonderful that they're that economically accessible.
Mhm.
So, in talking about Meta glasses and some of the other accommodations that you mentioned, what do you suggest a person who isn't yet using these technologies, what do you suggest they do as a good first step? Most people aren't in Lexington, Kentucky, and they can't visit you. But are there other organizations or low vision clinics, whatever, in other communities that are a good first step for people who are investigating, getting these technologies?
Yes, absolutely. I would say that every state has some type of low vision center, if not multiple. that you can get plugged into. There's lighthouses all over the country: Chicago Lighthouse for the Blind, San Francisco Lighthouse for the Blind, Miami. All of these facilities can provide information about assistive technology, but they can also provide training. Most of the time, these training and everything, the services they provide are free at no charge to the user. So definitely get plugged in with one of these in your area. If you're not in an area, maybe you live rurally, then jump online and do some research. I do my best to make videos, tutorial videos, instructional videos about these types of things. I'll make a video introducing the product, but I also try to make videos walking step by step, walking through how to use them, because I realize that some people just don't have access to that. And then the most important thing, though, I talk to people about, and I say this quite often, is take baby steps, right? You don't have to jump full steam, all in on learning everything you can about this product. Especially with computers or smartphones, people get overwhelmed very, very easily. And I say, just take it slowly. Let's just learn the basics. 99% of what you're going to be wanting to do, you can just use the basics and be perfectly fine with that. So let's just learn the foundational skills, the basic skills, and then we can build on that. Take it slowly. You don't have to, Rome wasn't built in a day. And so you don't have to drive yourself crazy trying to learn everything you can about this specific product.
And I think that's not only great advice for people with low vision that are exploring these technologies, the advice for taking small steps or baby steps is such great advice for life in general. Whatever we're trying to achieve or whatever problem we're trying to address. I've found that true in so many different scenarios and situations. And I think now's a good time, as we're talking about what people can do to explore these technologies, to tell people about the blind life. I mentioned you have all these YouTube videos and other informative things on your website. Tell us how you get to the blind life and what all is on there. Give us a little more detail.
Sure. Yeah. So as I mentioned, I started the Blind Life in 2013. And I have over 1,000 videos on my YouTube channel, which is mind-boggling even to me to think about that. And I only make videos for the blind community. So you can rest assured that if you go there looking for something related to vision impairment, that's what you're going to find. The YouTube channel you can find it very easily on YouTube. Just search youtube.com/theblindlife. Honestly, you could just Google The Blind Life and you'll find all of my stuff. That's one of the benefits of having so many videos out there. It completely saturates the market and makes it really easy to find me. But I'm not just on YouTube. I have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitter, I guess. I also have the podcast, the Blind Life Podcast, which is available on most podcast streaming platforms. And then the website. The website is a good place to learn about all of this. The website is theblindlife.net.
And is there a specific channel or video that you think is indispensable for somebody who's starting off in exploring low vision technologies and accommodations?
Yeah, well, I don't know if not necessarily one specific, but I've got videos on. I say this all the time. People say, "Hey, do you have a video on this?" I say, "Yes, I've made videos on everything at this point." I have videos on low vision technology. I have videos on magnification. I have videos on OCR devices, wearables, video magnification. I have videos on what happens next for parents of children that were recently diagnosed, which I mentioned getting connected with the Foundation Fighting Blindness in that video. I have videos on how to afford assistive technology. Like I said before, assistive technology is very expensive, and a lot of people see that price tag and they immediately shut down thinking, "Oh, I could never afford that. There's no way." but there are options out there. So I have a whole video talking about why assistive technology is so expensive, the economics of assistive technology. And then the second half is different ways to afford them, different ways to obtain them. So just videos about everything, honestly.
Right, right. There's definitely something for everybody
Hmm.
and then some. So it's great that you have so much content. You know, one thing I love about The Blind Life, I have to admit, I haven't seen a lot of the videos, but I love your logo, which for our listeners, at first it looks like a skull and crossbones, but
Hmm.
the bones below the skull are actually navigational canes. So I
Yes.
call it the skull and cross canes logo. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, a small detail a lot of people overlook is that the skull is actually wearing the stereotypical blind sunglasses as well.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. It's subtle, but it's there. My logo. The origin of the logo is kind of funny. Like I said, I started this channel back in 2013, and at the time, it was just a hobby. It was just something fun to do, something to occupy my time. So when I made my logo, it was just because, the 12-year-old boy inside of me thought that that would be a cool logo. It was inspired by a TV show at the time. I won't say the name of the show because it does have a bad word in it, but it's a bunch of guys who daredevils and they hurt themselves a lot. It was on MTV. And they had a logo. Their logo was the skull and it had crossed crutches because they were breaking bones all the time. So they had crutches.
Oh.
And I just loved that logo. I thought it was so cool. And so one day I was like, oh, I bet it would be funny if instead of crutches, I had the canes. And so I just made the logo and that became the channel logo. And 99.999% of people love the logo. And I've thought several times over the years that I should probably change my logo because maybe it's not the most professional. But when I voice those thoughts, everybody says, no, do not change the logo. We love the logo. And so I guess the logo is here to stay. But over the years, though, it's kind of become something more. It's grown to mean something more. I think it reflects just like the original Jolly Roger, which it's based on, the flag for pirates. It was a symbol of piracy. It was a symbol of we're not going to conform to what to society thinks we should be, and we're going to go against the establishment and all that. And so mine kind of reflects that a little bit, that I'm not going to live this life of blindness that society thinks I should be living. The view or the perception of blindness that everybody has, where we don't do anything. We just sit at home and we can't be out in public by ourselves because we have to have somebody taking care of us. And so I think the logo over the years have come to reflect that stubbornness to be independent and kind of maybe a not so subtle nod to I'm not going to do what you think I should be doing.
I love that you're taking a pretty serious and challenging condition or situation and injecting a little humor in that.
Hmm.
I think that's really important, and it says a lot about you and what you do as well. So
Yeah.
again, I love the logo.
Well, thank you.
So I have one more question, and this is a really important question, and it's sort of personal to me in a way, but you have a wonderful beard. And I know I have a beard too. It's not quite as bushy as yours. It's a lot grayer. And I do trim my own beard, as challenging as that is. But with your vision loss, are you able to trim your beard or do you have somebody do that?
No. Well, thank you very much. My beard used to be a lot bushier and a lot darker. I look at some of the older videos and I'm like, oh, your beard was looking so good back then. And now it's kind of thinning out and getting much more gray in it now. But no, I wish I could trim my own beard. I wish I could. It's just impossible. And I've thought over the years, maybe I could invent some kind of mask that just went over it and I just followed the edges of the mask with the clippers and it trimmed it the same way every single time. But I'm like, nah, that's not, I'm not an engineer. I couldn't come up with that. But no, I unfortunately I have to go to a barber and get them to pay somebody to take care of it for me. But because of that, I let it grow out a lot and then I'll get it trimmed back. Especially, if I'm going to a conference or some kind of event, that's when I'll go to the barber and I'll get everything cleaned up. So you might see some videos where it's looking nice and clean and nice and tight, and then you might see some videos where I'm looking a little bit more Grizzly Adams and it's a little unkempt. But that just means I haven't been to the barber in quite a while.
Well, your beard always looks great to me. So again, compliments
Thank you.
on whatever barber is doing the manicuring.
I've got a good one now.
They're doing a great job.
Yes.
So Sam, this has been a wonderful discussion. We've covered a lot of ground. Thanks for talking about your personal life a little bit, your beard, and perhaps most importantly, the different technologies out there for people with low vision and the blind life. It's been a really great discussion, and I just appreciate you taking time to help inform our community about how they can perhaps live a little better with low vision.
Ben, it's truly my pleasure. I appreciate the invitation to the podcast. Anytime I get to do anything with such an amazing, well-respected organization like the Foundation, I am more than happy to do so.
Well, the feeling is very much mutual, and I hope to see you in person somewhere soon. I'll feel like I know you a little better now that we've had this great discussion.
Yeah, I think it's guaranteed that we're going to run into each other again.
I think so. I think so. And before we sign off, I want to again thank Boehringer Ingelheim and Johnson & Johnson for sponsoring this episode. And listeners, thanks as always for joining Eye on the Cure. It's great to have you, and we look forward to having you back for the next episode.
This has been the Eye on the Cure podcast. To make an impact, donate now at fightingblindness.org.